Hello everyone, my name is Anitej Palur and today we'll be talking about Hitler and the Nazi Party, and we'll specifically be focusing on the years 1919 to 1923. Now before I begin with this video, I'd like to say that these slides are available down in the description box below. All you have to do is click on the link and you'll be able to view these slides. You can also click ahead at the timestamps if you already know or understand some of the topics which are to be covered in this video. All these pictures have links attached to them, which when clicked will redirect you to a website or a file for further reading. Now let us get started with this video. In the top left hand corner, we have a photograph of Clara Hitler, who was Hitler's mother, with whom he had a very close relationship with. Clara was married to Adolf Hitler, who was Hitler's father, and they were both cousins. Hitler was Clara's first child to survive infancy. Hitler's father wanted him to become a customs official, which he did not want to become. Hitler performed poorly in school and he was frequently beaten by his father. It was Hitler's mother who protected him during such difficult times. Following Hitler's father's death in 1903, Clara allowed him to drop school and even supported him when he wanted to go to Vienna. Hitler was devastated by his mother's death in 1907. And in fact kept a picture of her at all times. Now down here in the bottom right, we have a photograph of Dr. Karl Lueger. He was the mayor of Vienna and he founded the Austrian Christian Social Party. Now this man was a model for Hitler's anti-Semitism. Dr. Karl Lueger was a strict Catholic and he promoted policies against non-German speaking minorities, and this included the Jews. Now above that, we have a photograph of Hitler during the First World War. Now Hitler was of a lower social class. He was frustrated by his inability to rise in society. When war broke out in 1914, Hitler moved to Germany to avoid working alongside Jews and Czechs. In August of 1914, Hitler joined the Bavarian army as part of Germany, and in October of that same year, he fought in the Battle of Ypres. Here he was promoted to Lance Corporal and was even recommended for the Iron Cross Second Class. Hitler enjoyed fighting alongside students and professionals from German families. Many described him as a brave and diligent soldier. Hitler worked as a runner, carrying messages between the lines of trenches, which is considered an extremely dangerous job. Hitler described the First World War as the greatest of all experiences. He enjoyed fighting for something greater and alongside his comrades. Hitler fought for a total of 4 years in the First World War and was involved in 12 battles. I'd like to draw your attention to this illustration down here. Now this portrays the stab in the back myth, which Hitler believed in. Hitler believed that the German army did not lose the First World War on the battlefield, but rather was betrayed by the November criminals. In fact, the Nazi Party portrayed the Weimar Republic as the work of the November criminals. Now in this illustration, we can see a Jew, portrayed by the Star of David and the nose, stabbing a German soldier. Now over here on the left, we have a photograph of Hitler's DAP membership card as the 555th member, when in fact he was only the 55th member. Now this party was established in Weimar, Germany, and was the precursor of the Nazi Party. Over here we have a photograph of the beer hall Putsch, which was a failed takeover of the government of Bavaria, and which was conducted by the Nazi Party led by Adolf Hitler. Now down here we have the Nazi Party's flag, designed by Hitler in fact, and over here we have a poster of the concept of a superior Aryan race, which was a strong belief of Hitler. Now we'll be covering the topics of the beer hall Putsch, the German Workers' Party, and the Nazi Party in this video. Let us move on to the next part of our video. I'd like to start things off with a very short quote by Adolf Hitler. It goes as follows: "It is not truth that matters, but victory." This really comes to show Adolf Hitler's sense of wanting to win. Hitler really did not like losing, and he did not want to lose at all. Let us now move on to Adolf Hitler's early life. Hitler was born on the 20th of April 1889 in Austria to Austrian parents. Hitler was born in the small town of Brunau am Inn, which was located close to Germany. He was the fourth child of Clara and was the first to survive infancy. He lived alongside Alois' children from his second marriage. Hitler was also influenced by the idea of pan-Germanism, which was a belief in a greater Germany. This involved the union of German-speaking territories and was highly nationalistic in nature. Hitler was also an aspiring artist and sought admission to the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna, but was rejected twice. In 1907, he was devastated by his mother's death, and he was left with no money. He was now homeless in Vienna, where he was exposed to Karl Lueger's ideas. He fought in the German army during the First World War and was awarded 2 Iron Crosses for his bravery, but he was wounded on 2 occasions. He was shocked by the German defeat, and this gave rise to his belief in the stab in the back myth. He believed that the German army was betrayed by Jews, Marxists, and weak politicians. He absolutely despised the Treaty of Versailles. He then returned to Munich in the year 1918, where he began to work as an intelligence agent. Here, he spied on the DAP, or the German Workers' Party. In the top left-hand corner, we have a photograph of Hitler as a young boy. In the top right-hand corner, we have a photograph of Hitler as a soldier during the First World War. In the bottom left-hand corner, we have a photograph of Hitler as a young man after he returned to Munich in the year 1918. And finally, we have a photograph of Hitler after he joined the DAP, or the German Workers' Party. Let us now look at a short timeline of events from the year 1919 to 1923. In January of 1919, the DAP, or the German Workers' Party, is founded by Anton Drexler. Anton Drexler is shown here. Anton Drexler was a locksmith and a toolmaker. He joined the nationalist group, the Fatherland Party, during the First World War. In 1918, he set up a committee of independent workmen to combat free trade unions and advocate peace for Germany. When Hitler began spying on the DAP, many of the party's ideas were similar to his own. These included ultranationalism, anti-Semitism, anti-Marxism, and anti-capitalism. In September of 1919, Hitler joins the DAP. In February of 1920, the 25-point program is published. We will be covering the 25-point program later on in the video. In August of 1920, the DAP was renamed to the NSDAP, or the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or Nazi for short. In July of 1921, Hitler is elected as the party chairman. In August of 1921, the SA is founded by Hitler. Now the SA, or the Stormtroopers or Brown Shirts, were a paramilitary organization, and their job was to intimidate political opponents. Their logo is shown here. Many of them were from the Freikorps, a group of ex-soldiers. They also protected party meetings, and following the Beer Hall Putsch of 1923, they were reorganized. However, they were a very suspicious group, and they wanted to join the army during the Nazi regime, which the army did not like. In 1934, the SS troops killed SA leaders during the Night of the Long Knives. Following this event, the SA reduced in strength. In May of 1923, the SS is founded by Hitler. Now this is their logo over here. Now the SS were a group of personal bodyguards which protected Hitler during party meetings. In the year 1925, Heinrich Himmler becomes the leader of the SS. The SS comprised of soldiers who were not Jews and who were loyal to Hitler. They were a very deadly force. In November of 1923, the Beer Hall Putsch takes place. I would just like to analyze the Nazi Party logo and the flag of the Nazi Party. Now, the flag of the Nazi Party was designed by Hitler himself, and it really comes to show the passion for art which Hitler had even after he became the chairman of the Nazi Party. Now, the Nazi Party's logo was the swastika sign shown here. Now, this is a very ancient symbol, and it was used in India and Persia, and it was used to represent well-being. However, Hitler used the swastika sign to represent the Aryan race. The red in this flag represents socialism, the white represents nationalism, and of course the swastika represents the superior Aryan race. It is also important to note that the red, white, and black of the flag of the Nazi Party also represents the colors of the flag of the German Empire, and not that of the Weimar Republic. The eagle in this logo also represents the German Empire. I've also brought in a quote by Adolf Hitler when he first designed the logo. It goes as follows: "I myself, meanwhile, after innumerable attempts, had laid down a final form, a flag with a red background, a white disc, and a black swastika in the middle. After long trials, I also found a definite proportion between the size of the flag and the size of the white disc, as well as the shape and thickness of the swastika. This once again shows Hitler's passion for art." Let us now look at the 25-point program in detail. Now, the 25-point program was a list of policies that the Nazi Party would promise to introduce if it came to power. Now, a few points are mentioned here. First, we have a Greater Germany, which involved the union of German-speaking people. Secondly, we have the destruction of the Treaty of Versailles, which the German people despised. Next, we have autarky, which is where Germany would become economically self-sufficient and would not have to rely on other nations. Next, we have the Führer, where all power would be consolidated and a single leader would be able to lead Germany. We also have the principle of social Darwinism, where the Nazi Party viewed the Jews as inferior and viewed the Aryan race as the superior race. We also have Lebensraum, which was a belief in more living space for German people. A few other points include the destruction of Jews and communists. The 25-point program appealed to different members of society. First of all, it appealed to socialists. Farmers were to be given more land, pensions were to be improved, and public industries were to be owned by the state. The 25-point program also appealed to nationalists. A Greater Germany would be formed, and the Treaty of Versailles was to be destroyed. There would also be special laws for foreigners. The 25-point program was also viewed as racist. Jews were not to be viewed as German citizens, and immigration was halted. The 25-point program was also viewed as being fascist. A strong central government would be formed, and this government would be in control of the newspapers. Let us now look at the Beer Hall Putsch of November 1923. The Beer Hall Putsch, also referred to as the Munich Putsch, was an attempt of starting a revolution by Hitler, which had unfortunately failed. Hitler planned to take advantage of the hyperinflation crisis. Hitler partnered with nationalist politicians Kahr and Lossow. He brought the SA to rebel. On the 4th of October 1923, Kahr and Lossow called off the rebellion. However, on the 8th of November 1923, Hitler, along with 600 SA troops, barged into a meeting held at the local beer hall and forced them to start the rebellion at gunpoint. The SA then proceeded to take over the newspaper offices and the army headquarters. On the 9th of November 1923, Kahr called in the army and police to stop the rebellion. Hitler was then arrested 2 days later. Now over here we have some photographs of the Munich Putsch. Now over on the left there is a very interesting photograph. This shows a memorial which stands at the exact spot where the Munich Putsch took place. Let us now look at the reasons behind why Hitler thought he would be successful during the Munich Putsch. First of all, the Nazi Party had over 55,000 members. Secondly, the Weimar Republic was in shatters due to the hyperinflation crisis. The Weimar Republic also ended passive resistance in the Ruhr in September of 1923, which was extremely unpopular among Germans. This is the flag of the Weimar Republic. Hitler thought he would also be helped by politicians in Bavaria, but this was not the case. Moreover, Hitler had a large army, this being the SA, which was considered reckless to a certain extent. Hitler was also inspired by Mussolini's March on Rome movement. Here is a photograph of the March on Rome movement. Germany also resumed reparations in 1923, which was also unpopular among Germans. Hitler also thought that General Ludendorff would support him. Here is a photograph of General Ludendorff. General Ludendorff was arrested during the Munich Putsch. Here is a photograph of passive resistance in the Ruhr. Let us now look at the significance of the Munich Putsch. Following the Munich Putsch, the Nazi Party was banned. Hitler was also banned from speaking in public. Hitler was also tried for high treason and sentenced to 5 years in prison. He may have even received a death sentence, but the judges were in favor of Hitler's ideas. The Munich Putsch allowed his ideas to be published. Hitler only served 8 months in prison, but during this time he wrote the Mein Kampf, which allowed his ideas to be spread even further. The Munich Putsch also allowed Hitler to reorganize the Nazi Party. The Nazi Party then began to take part in elections rather than starting revolutions. Here is a photograph of Mein Kampf. Here is a photograph of when Hitler was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Here is another photograph of Hitler speaking in public. And here is a poster advocating the Nazi Party. And that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I also hope you've learned something useful. Here are some of my sources. You can click on these links when you view my presentation. I'd also like to point out that some of my sources are linked through my pictures. So if you'd like to look at them, please just view my presentation and click on the images. Once again, thank you very much for watching. This is Anitej Palur signing off.